scream pierced the night, ripping through the darkness like a blade. David bolted upright, his heart hammering against his ribs. It was 3 a.m. again. He sprinted down the cold marble hallway, his bare feet making barely a sound. The door to Lily's room was ajar. A sliver of light from the unicorn lamp spilled onto the floor. Lily was sitting on the bed, clutching the giraffe plushie that Isabella had given her on her last birthday. Her cheeks glistened with tears under the soft light. "I want Mummy," she sobbed when she saw him enter. "Why isn't she coming back?" David sat on the edge of the bed and pulled her close. The strawberry shampoo scent of her hair was a painful reminder of Isabella. 8 months and the pain was still an open wound. "We've talked about this, sweet pea. Mummy is in heaven now. But I want her to sing to me. Nobody sings like her." David closed his eyes. The song. It always came back to the song. Isabella had taken an old English nursery rhyme, "Twinkle, twinkle little star," and made it her own, changing words, adding verses about a brave princess who looked a lot like Lily. "I can sing it to you," he offered, knowing it wouldn't be the same. Lily shook her head, burying her face further into the plushie. "You don't sing it right. You forget the part about the magic butterfly." David ran a hand through his graying hair at 42. The dark circles under his eyes had become permanent since the accident. During the day, he ran sterling developments with the precision of a Swiss watch. No one at the board meetings would suspect that at night he crumbled, helpless to console his daughter. "Do you want some warm milk?" Mrs. Peterson, their housekeeper, set down cinnamon biscuits. Lily nodded weakly. David lifted her into his arms, surprised at how light she felt. Was she eating enough? Another worry for his endless list. The kitchen of the residence in Kensington remained immaculate. David turned on only the light above the central island. The rest of the house slept in shadows, too big, too empty since Isabella had left. As the milk warmed, Lily sat on a high stool, swinging her legs that didn't reach the floor. "I drew Mummy at school today," she said suddenly. The teacher asked who it was. David poured the milk into Lily's favorite mug, the one with drawings of dancing teacups. "And what did you tell her?" "That she was an angel." "Can angels visit us, Daddy?" The question hit him hard. David set the mug on the counter, searching for the right words. "I don't know, sweet pea, but she's always watching over you, wherever you are." His phone vibrated in his pajama pocket. A message from Charles, his partner. "Westminster property confirmed. Need your signature first thing tomorrow." David ignored it. Properties could wait. Mrs. Peterson appeared in the kitchen doorway, her robust figure wrapped in a floral robe. At 60, she had been the pillar that kept the house running since Isabella's death. "Another nightmare, sir?" she asked, though she already knew the answer. David nodded as Lily sipped her milk in silence. Mrs. Peterson approached Lily and gently stroked her hair. "You know, love, tomorrow is Saturday. Why don't you convince your dad to take you to Regent's Park? There's a butterfly exhibit you'd love." Lily's eyes lit up briefly. "Can we go, Daddy? Like when we went with Mummy?" David felt the familiar weight of guilt. Lately, he spent more time at the office than with Lily. Weekends had become a succession of work calls, interrupted by brief moments with his daughter. "Of course we can. Tomorrow will be just for us." Mrs. Peterson gave him a look of approval before taking Lily's hand. "Now to bed. Princesses need to rest." As he watched them walk away, David poured himself a whiskey he hadn't planned to drink. The amber liquid shimmered under the dim light. In the reflection of the glass, for a moment, he thought he saw Isabella's face, smiling as on that last morning before getting into the car. 8 months. 243 days exactly. And he was still waiting for the pain to lessen, for the nights to be easier, for Lily to stop crying for her mother. Tomorrow would be different, he promised himself. Tomorrow he would leave his phone at home and dedicate himself completely to Lily. Regent's Park, butterflies, ice cream, whatever she wanted. He couldn't bring back her mother, but at least he could be present. Completely present. What David didn't know was that the trip to Regent's Park would change their lives forever. The sun drenched Regent's Park on that Sunday morning. Families were scattered along the paths, children chased squirrels, and vendors hawked their wares. David adjusted the ribbons of Lily's hat as she bounced impatiently next to the candy floss stand. "Can we buy one, Daddy? The pink one, like Mummy used to buy me." David nodded, ignoring the lump in his throat that appeared every time Lily mentioned Isabella. He paid for the candy floss and watched his daughter carefully tear off small pieces, savoring each bite as if it were a treasure. They had arrived early as he promised. His phone remained on silent in his trousers pocket, though he had checked it discreetly while Lily admired the ducks on the lake. 3 missed calls from Charles. He would have to return them eventually, but not now. "Do you want to see the butterflies? The exhibit should be over there." He pointed towards the path that led to the temporary exhibition area. Lily shook her head, pointing in the opposite direction. "I want to go to the castle first. Mummy said real princesses lived there." David took her sticky hand and they walked towards Kensington Palace. The mention of Isabella was no longer a knife in his chest, but rather a constant pressure, like a bruise that wouldn't heal. As they climbed the hill, David's phone vibrated insistently, 3 times in a row. "It must be important. Sweet pea, wait for me here for a moment. I need to answer this call." "Just a minute." Lily frowned, but nodded, sitting on a nearby bench. David walked a few steps away, enough to keep her in sight while he took the call. "Charles, what's going on?" His partner's voice sounded tense on the other end of the line. "The Chinese investors moved up their visit. They're at the hotel right now and want to meet today. They say they're flying to Manchester tomorrow." David ran a hand over his face. This was the deal they had been pursuing for months, the expansion that would double the company's value. "You know I can't. I'm with Lily in Regent's Park." As Charles tried to convince him, David kept his eyes fixed on the bench where he had left Lily, except that the bench was now empty. "I'll call you later," he cut off abruptly. Panic rose in his throat as he spun in all directions. How had she disappeared so quickly? He cursed inwardly for getting distracted. "Lily, Lily!" he shouted, running down the path. An elderly couple pointed towards a clearing between the trees. David ran in that direction, his heart pounding in his chest. That's when he saw her. Lily was standing next to a woman sitting on a bench set back from the main path. The woman was holding a sketchbook and seemed to be showing something to his daughter, who was laughing with a joy that David hadn't heard in months. He approached, relieved but ready to scold Lily for wandering off. However, before he could speak, he heard something that left him paralyzed. A soft voice was singing, "The moon rocks in the sky, watching over my brave princess, while the magic butterfly brings colorful dreams." It was Isabella's song. Not the original nursery rhyme, but the personalized version that Isabella had created exclusively for Lily, with the magic butterfly and the brave princess. A version that no one else knew. David stood motionless, unable to process what he was hearing. The woman, with auburn hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and large hazel eyes, looked up and saw him. Her song was interrupted. "Sorry," she said with a shy smile. "Your daughter asked me to sing to her while I showed her my drawings." Lily turned around, noticing his presence. "Daddy, look, she draws just like Mummy, and she knows our secret song." David approached slowly, studying the stranger. She was in her early 30s. She wore jeans and a simple green blouse. Nothing extraordinary, except for the inexplicable familiarity with Isabella's song. "Excuse my daughter if she bothered you," he said in a controlled voice. "Lily, I told you not to wander off." The woman closed her sketchbook. "It was no bother. She's a lovely girl, sir." "Sterling, David Sterling," he responded automatically, extending his hand. "Eleanor Davies," she replied, shaking it briefly. "I teach art in primary school. I come here on Sundays to draw." David nodded, not knowing how to address the question of the song. It was Lily who did it for him. "Sing Daddy the butterfly song," she asked, tugging on Eleanor's blouse. "The one you were singing when I arrived." Eleanor seemed momentarily confused. "It's curious," I don't know where I got that melody. It just came to me when your daughter mentioned that she missed her mother's songs. David felt a chill run down his spine. That song is very specific. My wife created it for Lily. Eleanor's eyes widened in surprise. Really? How strange. I could swear I heard it somewhere, but I don't remember where. Lily had sat next to Eleanor and was flipping through her sketchbook. Look, Daddy. She drew a room just like mine, with the stars on the ceiling and everything. David leaned in to see the drawing and felt the ground move beneath his feet. It was, indeed, a children's room with lilac walls and glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, exactly like Lily's room. It even showed the peculiar butterfly mobile that Isabella had custom-made in an artisan market in Bath. How? He began, but couldn't finish the question. Eleanor looked at the drawing with the same surprise. It's strange. I drew this a few days ago from a dream I had. I didn't know it was your daughter's room. Lily, oblivious to the growing tension, continued turning the pages. And here's Mr. Giraffe, she exclaimed, pointing to a drawing of a plush giraffe identical to hers. David sat down next to them, trying to maintain his composure. This was beyond coincidence. Miss Davies, Eleanor, please, Eleanor, have we met somewhere? Did you know my wife, Isabella Price? She shook her head. Not that I remember. I moved to London just 6 months ago from Bristol. Before that, I was in the hospital for an accident. An accident? David felt his heart race. Yes, a head trauma. I was unconscious for several days. It was, Eleanor paused, calculating. About 8 months ago. 8 months. The same time that had passed since Isabella's death. Lily, who was still exploring the sketchbook, exclaimed again. Look, Daddy. She drew the strawberries with the sad face, like Mummy puts on your food so you don't get sick. David looked at the drawing, a plate with the forbidden symbol over some strawberries. His allergy to strawberries was something few people knew outside the family. Eleanor seemed increasingly bewildered. This is very strange. Since the accident, I have very vivid dreams, almost like memories, but of things I never lived. Sometimes I draw what I see in those dreams. David, unable to contain his curiosity, said, Can I ask you something personal? How did my daughter call me a moment ago? Eleanor looked at him confused. You mean when she said, Daddy? No, the nickname she used for her. Did you hear it? Eleanor seemed to reflect. Sweet Pea. It's pretty. It suits her with those big eyes she has. David felt breathless. No one outside the family knew that Sweet Pea was the special nickname that Isabella had created for Lily. Lily, completely oblivious to the tension, tugged on Eleanor's sleeve. Can you come to my house to draw with me someday? Eleanor looked at David, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. I don't think that would be appropriate, little one. We barely know each other. David, torn between distrust and an inexplicable sense of familiarity, took a card from his wallet. Perhaps we could talk another time. There are things I would like to ask you. Eleanor took the card cautiously. I understand that this must be disconcerting for you. It is for me too. But I assure you that I have no intention. I'm not accusing you of anything, David interrupted her. It's just that the coincidences are too many. Eleanor nodded, putting the card in her purse. Then she took out her own phone. If you don't mind, I would like to give you my number too, in case you decide you want to talk about all this. They exchanged information while Lily continued to be fascinated by the drawings. When saying goodbye, the girl hugged Eleanor with the familiarity of someone who is reunited with a loved one. David hadn't seen his daughter so comfortable with a stranger since Isabella's death. See you soon, Sweet Pea, Eleanor said, and then she stopped, surprised to have used the nickname so naturally. As they watched her walk away down the path, Lily took her father's hand. I like her. She speaks like Mummy. David watched Eleanor's figure disappear among the trees, a whirlwind of questions forming in his mind. Who was this woman really? How could she know such intimate details of his family? And why had Lily, so withdrawn lately, connected with her so immediately? His phone vibrated again in his pocket. Charles. insisting on the investors. But for the first time in months, David had something more important to think about than work. "Let's go see those butterflies, sweet pea," he said, gently squeezing his daughter's hand. As they walked towards the exhibition, he couldn't help but look back one last time, searching for Eleanor among the crowd. She had disappeared, but David was certain that they would meet again. Have you ever had a feeling that someone is strangely familiar, even if you've never met them before? Share your thoughts below. David rubbed his tired eyes in front of his computer screen. It was 2 in the morning, and he had spent hours reviewing every social media profile he could find of Eleanor Davies. The search had begun as a simple verification, but it had become an obsession. In her professional profile, he confirmed that she was indeed an art teacher at the Eleanor Roosevelt Primary School, in Islington, less than 20 minutes from his house. Her posts showed a woman passionate about art, with photographs of school projects and drawings by her students. Nothing extraordinary, nothing that connected her to his family. In other networks, he found photos of Bristol, her hometown according to what she had mentioned, posts about art exhibitions, books, and some landscape images. But what intrigued him most was the absence of posts for almost 2 months, about 8 months ago, just when Isabella died. After that period, her posts changed subtly. New interests, new places, as if something in her had changed. The sound of small footsteps pulled him from his thoughts. Lily appeared in the doorway of the study, hugging her plush giraffe. "You can't sleep, Daddy." David quickly closed the laptop and held out his arms to her. "Just working, sweet pea. Why are you awake?" Lily approached and climbed onto his lap. "I dreamed about the lady from the park. She was singing in my room." David felt a chill run down his spine. "And what was she singing?" "The butterfly song. She said she would come to see me soon." David tried to remain calm as he carried Lily back to her room. As he tucked her in, she looked at him with sleepy eyes. "Can we see the lady from the park again? She talks like Mummy." "I promise I'll think about it," he replied, kissing her forehead. But he had already decided. He needed to see Eleanor Davies again. The following Saturday, David took Lily back to Regent's Park, feigning casualness. He had researched that Eleanor used to draw near the lake on weekends, according to her posts on social media. They walked along the same path as the previous encounter, with Lily running ahead, searching with her eyes. It was Lily who saw her first. Sitting on the same bench with her sketchbook, Eleanor seemed absorbed in her work. David watched his daughter run towards her without hesitation, as if she were someone she completely trusted. "You came!" Lily exclaimed, surprising Eleanor. The woman looked up and smiled with genuine joy when she recognized the girl. David approached more slowly, studying every gesture, every reaction. "What a surprise to find you here," Eleanor said, closing her sketchbook. "How are you, sweet pea?" The nickname came out of her lips naturally, as if she had always used it. David noticed it immediately. "We were passing by, and Lily insisted on walking this path," David explained. "It seems she was hoping to find you." Eleanor smiled, but there was something in her eyes, a mixture of confusion and familiarity that David couldn't decipher. Lily sat next to Eleanor and began to talk about her week at school, about a drawing she had made, about how Mrs. Peterson had burned the cinnamon biscuits. She spoke to her as if she had known her all her life. "You know," Lily said suddenly, "Daddy doesn't know how to make shepherd's pie like Mummy did. He always forgets the secret ingredient." Eleanor looked at David curiously. "Shepherd's pie? It's one of my favorite dishes. My version has a touch of nutmeg in the topping, although many purists would say it's heresy." David was paralyzed. Isabella's secret ingredient was precisely that, adding a pinch of nutmeg to the topping, something she passionately defended against the criticism of her own mother. "How do you know that?" he asked, unable to hide his astonishment. Eleanor seemed confused by his reaction. "Know what? The nutmeg in the topping. It was exactly what my wife did." An awkward silence settled between them, broken only by Lily, who continued to flip through the sketchbook. "Look, Daddy." She drew Cornwall-like in the photos we have at home. David looked at the drawing. A landscape of St. Michael's Mount, with the exact same angle as a photograph they had framed in the living room, taken during a trip when Lily was barely 6 months old. "Have you been to Cornwall?" he asked, trying to maintain a casual tone. Eleanor nodded slowly. "I think so, a long time ago, although I have confused memories since my accident." Accident. David knew the answer, but he needed to hear it from her. "About 8 months ago. Pretty serious head trauma. I was unconscious for several days. The coincidence was impossible to ignore. 8 months ago, while Isabella died in a car accident, Eleanor suffered a head trauma that left her unconscious for days. "Would you like to have a coffee?" David asked, pointing towards a small terrace near the lake. "It's a perfect day to be outdoors." Eleanor accepted, and the three of them headed to the cafe. While Lily was distracted with an ice cream, David found the moment to speak more directly. "Since we met, I can't stop thinking about the coincidences, the song, the details you know about us." Eleanor stirred her coffee, visibly uncomfortable. "I've been thinking about it too. I don't know how to explain it, but since the accident, I have very vivid dreams, memories that don't seem mine. Sometimes I wake up convinced that I have lived things that never happened." "What kind of memories?" Eleanor hesitated for a moment. "It's hard to explain without sounding completely crazy. I dream of places I've never been, with people I don't know. I draw rooms I've never seen. And when I met Lily, it was like I already knew her." David watched her carefully. She didn't seem to be lying. "What did the doctors tell you about your accident?" "That I was lucky to survive. I was in a coma for 3 days. When I woke up, there were things I didn't remember well, and others that seemed to have mixed up in my mind." "Do you remember how the accident happened?" Eleanor shook her head. "I was on my bicycle. A car. They say it hit me and I was thrown several meters. I don't remember anything from that day." David felt a chill. Isabella had died in a car accident when another driver swerved into her lane. "You know," David said after a long silence, "there are theories about cellular memory, about how some people after transplants develop tastes or memories of their donors." Eleanor looked at him curiously. "I didn't receive any transplants, if that's what you're suggesting." "No, that's not it. But maybe." David stopped, aware of how absurd it would sound. "Maybe there are connections that we can't explain." Lily, who had been focused on her ice cream, looked up. "Like when Mummy promised that she would always be with me, even if I couldn't see her." Eleanor and David exchanged a look, surprised by the girl's intervention. "You know," Eleanor finally said, addressing Lily, "I also feel sometimes that there is someone watching over me, even if I can't see them." The afternoon progressed between increasingly personal conversations. Eleanor mentioned phrases that were typical of Isabella, gestures that were familiar to David. Each coincidence added a piece to an impossible puzzle. As dusk began to fall, David made an impulsive decision. "Lily wants to show you her drawings. Would you like to come to dinner at our house next week?" The invitation surprised Eleanor, but before she could answer, Lily clapped enthusiastically. "Yes, I can show you my butterfly collection and my storybooks." Eleanor smiled at the girl's enthusiasm. "I guess I can't refuse such a special invitation, but with one condition." "Which one?" David asked. "That you allow me to bring the dessert. I make a lemon drizzle cake that—" Eleanor stopped suddenly, as if she had said something wrong. David completed the sentence for her. "With orange zest in the icing." Eleanor's eyes widened in surprise. "How did you know?" "It was Isabella's favorite dessert. She prepared it exactly like that." A silence loaded with unanswered questions settled between them. Finally, Eleanor spoke in a barely audible voice. "That day in the park when we met, I felt like something was calling me to that specific place. I never sit on that bench, but that day was different." David nodded, beginning to accept an idea that any rational person would reject, that somehow something of Isabella lived in this woman in front of him. "Thursday at 7 then," David confirmed, writing down his address on a napkin. As they said goodbye, Lily hugged Eleanor with the familiarity of someone who is reunited with a loved one. David watched the scene with a mixture of awe and hope. Perhaps there was something beyond what he could explain. Something that was returning the light to his daughter's eyes, and perhaps, just perhaps, also to his own. The aroma of freshly baked lemon drizzle cake filled the kitchen as David nervously arranged the plates on the dining room table. Mrs. Peterson watched the preparations with curiosity, more elaborate than usual. Lily, dressed in her favorite floral dress, waited impatiently by the window. The doorbell rang punctually at 7. Eleanor appeared in the doorway with the promised lemon drizzle cake and a small package wrapped in colorful paper. "For you," she said, handing the gift to Lily, who opened it enthusiastically, revealing a set of professional watercolors. "They're like the ones Mummy used," the girl exclaimed, hugging Eleanor. David exchanged a look with Mrs. Peterson, who raised her eyebrows in surprise. Isabella had been fond of watercolor, something Eleanor couldn't know. Dinner was filled with a strange familiarity. Eleanor praised the decoration of the house, stopping especially at an abstract painting that hung in the hallway. "This was always my favorite," she commented distractedly. "The blue tones convey so much peace." David stopped halfway through serving the wine. The painting had been an anniversary gift from Isabella, who always said exactly those words about it. When Lily asked for more water, Eleanor automatically got up and went to the kitchen, opening without hesitation the exact cabinet where the glasses were kept, a gesture that did not go unnoticed by David. The most disconcerting moment came during dessert. While they were talking about music, Eleanor casually mentioned how much she liked Florence and the Machine, specifically the song, "Shake It Out." "It was Isabella's favorite song," David murmured, studying Eleanor's reaction. She seemed genuinely surprised. "What a coincidence. I heard it for the first time after my accident and felt an immediate connection." The doorbell interrupted the conversation. David's mother and sister arrived for coffee, a visit he had deliberately arranged. Eleanor, David's mother, observed Eleanor intently while Charlotte, his sister, maintained a tense smile. The conversation flowed superficially until Lily insisted on showing Eleanor her room. As soon as they disappeared down the hallway, Charlotte leaned towards her brother. "Who is she really, David? There's something very strange about all this." David briefly explained the encounter in the park and the inexplicable coincidences. Eleanor listened with an indecipherable expression while Mrs. Peterson sighed, confirming the details. When Eleanor and Lily returned, the girl was carrying an old photo album. She opened it to a specific page showing a photograph of Isabella pregnant. "Look, this is Mummy when I was in her tummy." Eleanor looked at the photograph and visibly paled. Her hands trembled as she touched the image. "This place," she murmured, "is the Lake District, by Lake Windermere. There was a cottage with a wooden jetty there." She stopped, noticing that everyone was staring at her. The photograph showed exactly what she described, details that were not visible in the image. The silence that followed was broken by Eleanor, who stood up abruptly. "I must go," she announced. "Charlotte, will you accompany me?" The farewell was tense. When the door closed behind them, Eleanor apologized. "I think I made your family uncomfortable. I'm sorry." "It's not your fault," David replied, although he himself felt deeply disturbed. After putting Lily to bed, who insisted that Eleanor read her a story, David accompanied her to the door. "Thank you for dinner," she said, "but perhaps we should take some distance. All this is too confusing." David nodded, although a part of him resisted the idea. The phone rang just 10 minutes after Eleanor left. It was Charlotte, her voice full of concern. "Do you realize what you're doing? You're looking for Isabella in this woman. It's sick, David." "That's not it," he tried to explain. "No? Then explain to me why you invite a complete stranger to dinner who happens to look like Isabella, has her same tastes, and even knows details of your private life. Haven't you considered that she could be a con artist? You're a rich, widowed, vulnerable man." The conversation ended with David promising to be cautious, although his sister's words had planted a seed of doubt. That night, as he stared at the ceiling of his room, the questions assailed him. Was he projecting his pain onto these coincidences? Was it possible that Eleanor had researched them? Or was there something more? Something that escaped rational logic? The next day, he called his friend Dr. James, a psychologist, and told him the whole situation during lunch. There are documented phenomena such as cellular memory, James explained. People who, after transplants, develop tastes or memories of their donors. There are also cases of near-death experiences where consciousness seems to transfer temporarily. David listened attentively. Do you think it's possible that something of Isabella is in her? James looked at him with compassion. What I think is that you are in a vulnerable stage of grief. Your mind seeks connections, patterns, anything that brings back something of Isabella. It's understandable, but dangerous. David decided to follow everyone's advice and distance himself. He explained to Lily that they wouldn't see Eleanor for a while, provoking a tantrum like she hadn't had in months. You promised she would come to my school fete. The girl screamed through tears. David stood firm, although each tear of Lily was a dagger in his heart. Meanwhile, Eleanor was dealing with her own demons. The dreams had intensified since the dinner at David's house. She saw places she had never visited, remembered conversations she had never had. In one of the most vivid dreams, she held a newborn baby, while a voice whispered to her, "Take care of my sweet pea." She woke up startled, certain that something inexplicable was happening. She tried to distract herself with her work, avoiding thinking about David and Lily, although she felt an inexplicable emptiness without them. 2 weeks later, Eleanor was supervising an art stand at the interschool spring fete. Focused on helping her students, she didn't notice the small figure approaching until she felt arms around her legs. You came. Lily's voice startled her. I knew you would come. Eleanor bent down to her level, genuinely surprised. Lily, what are you doing here? It's my fate. My school is also participating. Eleanor looked up and saw David approaching with an expression of astonishment. It hadn't been planned. Destiny or something more powerful had brought them together again. I didn't know you would be here, he said when he reached them. I work at the Eleanor Roosevelt Primary School, she replied. We're in the same school cluster. Lily looked at them alternately, with a smile that lit up her face for the first time in weeks. See, Daddy? I told you she would come. David observed Eleanor, noticing the sparkle in her eyes, the way she smiled at Lily, the naturalness with which she stroked her hair. There was no calculation or manipulation in those gestures, only a genuine connection that defied any rational explanation. At that moment, under the morning sun and surrounded by the festive bustle of hundreds of children, David felt something loosen in his chest. Perhaps he didn't need to understand everything. Perhaps he only needed to accept that, sometimes, life offers second chances along unexpected paths. Sometimes, the universe throws us a curveball, leading us to unexpected connections. What do you believe in? The spring sun bathed the garden of the Sterling house as Lily chased butterflies among the rose bushes. From the patio, David watched his daughter run with a freedom she hadn't shown in over a year. Next to him, Eleanor prepared lemonade, distractedly humming Twinkle, Twinkle Little Star. 6 months had passed since that unexpected encounter at the school fete. 6 months of caution, of gradual approaches, of deep conversations and complicit silences. 6 months in which Eleanor's presence had brought light to a house that had remained in shadows for too long. Lily, be careful with the flowers, Eleanor called when the girl was about to step on a newly planted flower bed. David smiled, noticing how his daughter obeyed immediately, something that with him required repetitions and negotiations. The connection between them was undeniable, but it no longer disturbed him as before. He had learned to accept the inexplicable. I have to go out for a moment, David announced, taking the car keys. I'll be back for dinner. Eleanor nodded, understanding without needing explanations. She knew exactly where he was going. The cemetery was quiet that afternoon. David walked among the gravestones with a bouquet of sunflowers, Isabella's favorite flowers. He had avoided this place since the funeral, but today he felt it was the right time. Isabella's tomb, simple but elegant, reflected her personality. David placed the flowers and sat on the small stone bench. "Hello, Izzy," he began, feeling strange speaking aloud. "I know I should have come sooner, but I couldn't find the words." The silence of the cemetery enveloped him as he sought how to continue. "I met someone who, in some impossible way, seems connected to you. Lily adores her. She says she talks like you, that she laughs like you. And she's right." A soft breeze moved the leaves of the nearby trees. "I don't know if this is part of some cosmic plan or just an extraordinary coincidence, but for the first time since you left, I feel like I can breathe without it hurting. That I can look forward without feeling like I'm betraying you." David spent an hour by the grave, telling Isabella about Eleanor, about how Lily had started drawing again, about the small moments of happiness that had returned to their lives. When saying goodbye, he gently touched the headstone. "I will always love you, Izzy, but I think it's time to move on. And if somehow you're behind all this, thank you." The following weekend, David surprised Eleanor with a trip to the Lake District. Lily was excited. Eleanor, nervous. "I've never been there," she said while packing her suitcase. "At least, not that I remember." But when they arrived at the small hotel by the lake, Eleanor stopped dead in her tracks in front of the wooden jetty. Her eyes filled with tears as she gazed at the landscape. "I've seen it before," she murmured. "In my dreams." David took her hand, and they walked to the end of the jetty. This was where he had proposed to Isabella, where they had spent their honeymoon, where they had brought Lily for the first time when she was just a baby. Lily ran to the shore to pick up flat stones, leaving them alone. "Sometimes I feel like there are memories in me that don't belong to me," Eleanor confessed, looking at the horizon. "As if a part of another person lived inside me. But at the same time, I know who I am. I am Eleanor Davies, an art teacher born in Bristol, with my own dreams and fears." David listened in silence. "I don't pretend to be her, David. I couldn't be, even if I wanted to. But I think that, in some way that I don't understand, she brought us together. She found us when we needed each other most." Eleanor turned to him, her eyes shining with emotion. "What I feel for you, for Lily, is real. It's mine. It's not an echo of something past, but something new, something ours." David hugged her as the sun began to set over the lake, tinging the water with orange and purple. At that moment, he knew for sure what he had been contemplating for weeks. Back in London, life took on a new routine. Eleanor spent almost every weekend at the Sterling's house. Lily flourished under her influence, developing a talent for art that she had clearly inherited from Isabella. Her room filled with watercolors and drawings, and her nightmares disappeared completely. Even David's family began to accept the situation. Eleanor, his mother, was the first to give in, impressed by the positive change in her granddaughter. Charlotte took longer, but eventually recognized that the relationship between David and Eleanor was genuine, not an attempt to replace Isabella. One summer night, David organized a special dinner in the garden. Mrs. Peterson prepared the shepherd's pie that Eleanor liked so much, with the secret touch of nutmeg that they now both shared. Lily was unusually mysterious, whispering and laughing with her grandmother Eleanor. After dessert, Lily approached Eleanor with a small box wrapped in silver paper. "It's for you," she said with a knowing smile. Eleanor opened the gift carefully. Inside was a ring with a small emerald, the same shade of green as Isabella's eyes, which now shone in Lily's. David knelt next to her while Lily clapped excitedly. "You have brought us joy again, Eleanor. Will you officially become part of our family?" The wedding was held 2 months later in the garden of the house. It was an intimate ceremony, with barely 30 guests. Lily, radiant in her bridesmaid dress, carried a basket with flower petals that she scattered along the path. During the exchange of vows, a monarch butterfly briefly landed on Eleanor's bouquet. Lily pointed excitedly. "Look, it's Mummy. She said that monarch butterflies are souls that come to visit us." Eleanor and David exchanged a look of awe as the butterfly fluttered between them before ascending towards the sky. The party extended until sunset. When most of the guests had left, David, Eleanor, and Lily sat on the patio, watching the sun set behind the city buildings. You know what the butterfly told me? Lily asked with the innocence of her 7 years. What did it tell you? Eleanor replied, playing along. That it's happy because we're not sad anymore, and that now it can fly free. David hugged his daughter and his new wife as the last lights of the day faded. They didn't need to fully understand what had happened. It didn't matter if it had been destiny, a cosmic coincidence, or something beyond human comprehension. The only thing that mattered was that they had found a new beginning, a path where the past was not forgotten, but honored as part of their story. A future where love, in all its mysterious forms, had found a way to be reborn. And as the first stars appeared in the sky, the three remained united, looking forward with hope, with the certainty that some endings are, in reality, beautiful beginnings. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and let us know in the comments. Do you believe in destiny? Or are these just extraordinary coincidences?